Welcome to IA&A at Hillyer. My name is Tim Brown, I'm the Hillyer Director, and I usually get very excited about these types of programs because it's a partnership. We are partnering with the Inner Loop, and one thing I like about this partnership is we get to focus on what we call Ekphrastic events. We used to do programs like this a lot when I worked in the museum field. We used to get students to participate in slam poetry competitions as they recited poems in response to works of art in the collection. It was so cool. Ever since then, I was like, you know what? I got to find every chance I can to have a program like this. And so what better way to do this than to partner with an organization like the Inner Loop. We did have a partnership last year that was superb. We recorded it. You can find it on YouTube. And we're going to record this one too. So let's get started. Let's give a warm welcome to Rachel Cooks.
Thank you so much. So I am from the Inner Loop, and for anybody who doesn't know what the Inner Loop is, we are a local nonprofit for local writers. We promote them through all of our programming. We have readings, retreats, a summer residency, and we do lots of collaborations in the community like this one. And so we feel so privileged to be here in this amazing space with this such inspiring art. I can't believe I'm standing in front of this. And we're just so grateful that the artists have shared their work with us, and to be able to respond to it is a real privilege. I am playing a couple roles tonight. I am introducing and I'm reading, and so I know the horrible task that I've given these writers. They came at the opening of the art gallery to see the art, and throughout the month, and had to craft a piece in response. And a month is not a long time for a writer. We like to percolate and think about things for a long time before we put words to them. So the pieces you hear tonight are going to be quite raw. And one of the writers came up to me and said, "I'm afraid I did it wrong." And I said, "There's no wrong way to do Ekphrastic. The whole point is just to come in and get inspired." Here at the Inner Loop, we also we feature writers of all different genres and levels of their career. So you'll be hearing fiction, nonfiction, poetry, the whole gamut. And the last time we did this, we were just so amazed at the variety of pieces that were presented. So I'm sure that that's going to happen again tonight. I see 3 empty chairs here. Does anybody want to come up here? There's anybody in the other room? Don't be shy. It's unsettling as a reader to see empty chairs. Okay. What else? Writers, we don't have a microphone projecting your voice, so please do project. It sounds loud up here because of the echo, but I'm sure the people in the back room and the other room would appreciate it sounding loud to you, so that it sounds audible to them. All right. I hope that people got a chance to see the program. This is the order that we'll go in tonight, and I'm just going to jump right in. Writers, the other thing is feel free to indicate which art inspired you, if you want to talk a little bit about it, or if you just want to say it or point at it or anything you want, or just jump right in, whatever you prefer. Okay, so kicking us off is Okizi Waka.
Hey Rachel, can I hear you? Thank you. Hi everyone. So I came to the open house, and I was really inspired by the works of Mike Eaton. It's around the corner. A boat named Jesus, a boat called Jesus, Xenophobia, and Born in America inspired me to share this piece. It's called Angel Man's Proof. And it's a very short story. And there he was, lying on December Street, urine frozen against his frostbitten thighs. The urine was his own. He stared at the feet of the passerby weakly, eyes half set like a faint sun against the horizon. Black was what he wore, with green stockings riddled with holes. He had no shoes, he needed a jacket, his lips were cracked and bloodied. Dumbass, the man muttered. Faggy-ass bitch. Retarded sister fucking nigger. The passerby walked quickly, quick. She did not understand. The man was speaking of himself. And hunger. What of it? Dumbass, faggy-ass bitches shouldn't eat. Retarded-ass sister fucking niggers shouldn't eat. And he lied there, hungry, consuming only a pernicious kind of poison. And what would the antidote be? He lacked evidence. Men didn't lie on the street or piss their pants or go without jobs. Men didn't hate. At least good men didn't. And the ones that didn't hate themselves. He lacked any evidence to counter the thoughts in his head. There was no one to call, and he had no phone. He lacked any evidence to make him think differently. Dumbass, no school, little school, not enough school, at least not enough to get anything decent. Faggy-ass bitch, unmanly, cowardly, drawn to the effeminate nature of things. Retarded sister fucking nigger, ineloquent, suffering from perverse thoughts, African American. He stuck his finger into his rectum and pulled it out and sniffed it. The smell woke him up, like coffee, like crack. He didn't do drugs, he couldn't afford them. He didn't buy tissue, he couldn't afford it. The black man wearing black had 5 cents to his name, a nickel in a cup. Not yet enough for anything on the dollar menu. McDonald's doesn't sell fries by the penny. You hate your life, the thought came back. I hate my life. And December street grew colder, and the man more hopeless. Where was the evidence? Where was the evidence to live? Men had wives, men had homes, men had money, and if he was not a man, how could his existence be real? His lengthy beard meant nothing. His overgrown pubes meant nothing. The past 56 years meant nothing. He, therefore, was nothing. He was not a man. His existence, therefore, was a lie, a mistake, an error, survival of the fittest, not the weak. He violated natural law. God indeed was dead. God indeed. There was a river under the bridge it ran. Its name was Potomac. The black men wearing black, shoeless, hopeless, left December Street. Lies are aberrant, he said. The contradictions must be removed. All man has is his rationality, and I am, without question, a rational man. The man left December Street and headed for the bridge. The red from the traffic light hit him. A bus nearly did the same. The passerby walked quickly. The man went unseen. You're a dumbass. I'm a dumbass. Go to the bridge. I'll go to the bridge. Stand on the ledge. I'll stand and jump. And the man went. The passerby slipped on some ice, but the man went. The passerby offered him some money. The man still went. The passerby, no more passerby, and soon he was at the bridge. Go ahead, nigger, faggy-ass bitch, sister fucking retard. You ain't no man. I ain't no man. I'm not a man. There is no evidence of it. Stand on the ledge. He stood on the ledge and saw the river below. December had iced it, as cold as the man's thoughts. Jump to the river. I will. Jump to the river. I will. And he saw them, children who had come to skate, innocent fools, irrational beings. They knew nothing, and he saw them skating about the frozen ice. One fell down, it cried. The others helped it up. It smiled. Another fell again. It did not cry. It skated away from the sight. The children sang Christmas carols. Irrational, the man thought. Santa Claus and Jesus Christ. Irrational. The man climbed the ledge. Jump, I will. Jump, I did. And he fell, and as he fell, his breathing slowed. He saw the ice and hit it. And the children gathered around the pool of water. Around the pool of water they stood, and they saw the man. He was treading water. Who is that man? Who is that skinny man? He looks like our father. He looks like my grandpa. Why would that man fall into a cold river? Maybe he's Santa and he's fallen from his sleigh. Maybe he's an angel. Maybe he's lost his way. I think he's an angel. Me too. Angel man. Yeah, he's Angel man. Angel man, will you be okay? They asked the man. Angel man, will you be okay? They asked as the man treaded water. The man did not respond. Angel man, do you need our help? The man kept treading water. Angel man, can you hear us? And the man no longer could, for he had disappeared beneath the water and did not resurface again. A boy began to cry. His sister joined him, and the children said, don't cry. Angel man's gone home. And the children laughed and smiled and celebrated. They went into the streets and spoke to the people about Angel Man. They were not believed at first. They were not believed. They cried and they cried to the passerby. They cried to tell the legend of the man called Angel Man. They cried it to the passerby, and to the passerby cried back, "What are you children making all this noise for? Go home and do some homework." "Officer, officer, we saw Angel Man." "Now who is Angel Man?" "He fell from the sky," the children said. "Into the river," the children said. "Then he died," the children said, and went back home. The officer saw their skates. The river was close by. The officer was a man, a rational man who put two and two together. He walked to the bridge and saw the river and saw the punctured ice. He knew the tale was true. He told the children to stand aside and stripped himself and felt December's winds against him. He climbed the ledge and jumped and fell into the gaping hole. He swam beneath the frigid waters, and minutes passed. He came up for air and warmth and entered beneath again. He saw the man and caught him and dragged him up and up and up. The officer dragged the man to the surface of the river and stretched him along the bank. The officer saw the man was dead and mourned him quiescently. But the children looking down cheered on, shouting, "Angel Man, Angel Man." And the passerby, glancing at all those rational beings, walked quickly, quickly, quick. Thank you.
Next, please welcome Diana Smith Bolton.
Hi, I'm going to read two poems inspired by Karina Honerman's pieces out in the other room. So the pieces they're hanging down in the projection. From soft mists like baby's hair, the idea I am begins to form. A limp mule, then a grasping shudder, but I am. As the idea wakes, it unfurls and shakes, curls like burning paper, then uncoils to full length. I am. The idea assumes a form, defined, defiant, deified. It is a ribbon without end or beginning. It is a spiral of hair smoothed down only to recoil like a spring. See that I am taking up space. Grasp the idea with material hands. Weigh it, pass it palm to palm. Consider its density and undeniability. Now lift your palms in praise and push the ribbon, the newborn and true idea, aloft. I am manifest at last and free. And then the other one is about the projection. So I heard from several folks that one was a little bit hard to walk away from. So I'm right there with you. The gauze is both wall and window, a way to preserve and to observe. We can't touch the hands we seek to hold, which are too busy to love you anyway. Idle hands are the devil's playthings, but mine lay limp and useless. The hands that write this poem are not the hands that embroidered the coverlet, are not the hands that wove the gauze, are not the hands that stilled the fear when his hands intended to harm. Remember the women who went before us, their hands always busy, brushing our hair down our backs, tying up our plaits with ribbons, buckling our little shoes over our little socks, sewing and smoothing our dresses. In the memory castle, I kneel on the cold stone and whisper their names to the walls. Thank you.
Next, please welcome Winbo Bai.
Hi everyone. I was lucky enough to come to the open house and was actually inspired by all three of the artists and their pieces, so you'll be hearing from all three exhibits in my two poems that I have today. 1. Push. A crowd gathers here, 20 miles away from where planefuls of immigrants finally touched this land of America, 2 miles away from where busloads of migrants dropped off downtown, pick up and absorb the colors in their lives to recreate themselves, their families, their livelihoods, to make themselves whole. protected by people looking at them, protected by people looking away, protected by people fighting down the street in the people's house. Are they protected by these walls? Do these walls taste sweet, or do they taste of nothing? Hardened by the air, rendered flavorless by time, all is hyper-palatable in this palace of space, in this final destination, area in a city that costs $534 per square foot. For there are vile words locked into static softness here, loosened by locks, strands, braids, tresses, an explosion of beauty from violence, thick eyelids blinking from above, shocked at our presence, shocked at the sterility of the room, bearing witness to this nation, to this city, to its people, who read about it in the paper, learn about it in the textbooks, hear about it from a State Department friend. I am told gouache paint does not allow for careless mistakes, leaving no room for error, and that a perfectly painted picture or a soul of issue is precisely the margin of error. It's precisely the margin of luck or fortune that it requires for someone to exist in this room with us, or not at all. We shake our heads, shut our eyes hard enough to see colors explode, colors that tessellate, bloom, and resist violently against the whiteness. For how can America hear and read and learn, yet never understand deep into the marrow of our bones another monolithic entity crushing, the roof gone, smoke billowing from all sides of the street, shoes and clothes and bodies scattered among the rubble, never to return, only to return in dreams? 2. Pull. The sail is a sail, and the sail is a lie. I read in a memoir by Fei Mian-ying, a nagging curve of regret shaping one's life in perpetuity and the lives that come after. But still, we are here, hoisted by one way or another into orbit, pulled and pushed around each other by laws none of us wrote, successfully sold for, into, or by this country. We come here to this echo chamber to remember that we are here in this country, fattened by excess, humbled by scarcity, hefty fold of extra cloth cast aside, bloating and bleeding from one side, concave and vacant from others, powerful truths yearning, taking shape and stretching out from the walls, but this country plunges them deeper into the earth, where we buried the rest of them. As we stand here in this moment, our dollars skimmed, siphoned off to fight and kill in wars and genocides we now simply can watch on our phones, in wars we may not even know exists, and all the ones yet to come. In the end, it is everything on these stark walls, all our collective breaths and tears that expose us to remind us of our solitude and our solidarity. A gentle finger tenderly monitoring humanity's invisible jumping pulse. Thank you.
Please welcome Melanie Fig.
Hello, thanks for coming. I am writing too about Kiana's really beautiful installation in the other room. And writing about toxic relationships and gaslighting. So this is called Mend Ensnared. Months after the severing, his language still hangs over her, shadowing texts fueling his spite, swooping into her sightlines, flitting away mean-spirited. A ghost of her former self, a shine she can hardly find under the tarnish of his words, sneers and near misses in the night, bats catching in her hair, calling out to her in a previous name, calling out her ideas of herself, long gone but echoing, faint, almost unfindable. How to locate what has been lost. Tangling the tiny ghosts of before, screech and soar, echoes in the canyons, echoes in the cave where a fungus ruins another cauldron. The work of dismantling, the alien effort to forgive for staying so long, the fear to reinvent from so little, the shadows of bats flapping on the white bowl of evening. She knows them by their flight, the pace of their travel, the flutter of memory, wanting to belong, of trusting someone not to grudge and warp, the betrayal of sulk, when talk became a twisted strand, stifled behind masks and the isolation, a domestic kind of plague. His constant erasing, the panicked flight of girls betrayed but still reaching to diving and flapping upwards, the erratic route of grief, working to scout her surroundings by the returning echoes, married and tombed, knocking through time and plunging past a barn of bats, fungled and doomed. A cave of silence that spreads and splinters one's hope, howling against the blackboard, unattended and ravenous, ricocheting like his skittering bitterness that cuts her to the quick. How to retrieve the self from such deterioration? She was told that each relationship is a lesson in transformation, pollinating on instinct, sustaining long flight, and not doubting the fruit will come. Thanks.
Next up, welcome Blake Meme.
Hi, everyone. This piece is based on Mike Easton's work. I'm going to start with a quick content warning. It contains mention of a lynching that took place in my hometown. I also directly quote some historical news sources that use the words Negro and colored. I also just wanted to mention that I will be donating my honorarium to the Sugarland Ethnohistory Project, which is an organization that does just wonderful work preserving and sharing the history of Sugarland, a historical African-American community pretty close to where I grew up in Montgomery County. This is called On Snallygasters. The river rats still tell tales of the snallygaster, warning sunburnt teenagers on inner tubes and wobbly-kneed men learning to paddleboard to keep an eye towards the sky, not that one could miss the snallygaster. It once grabbed a hold of a man in Emmitsburg by his suspenders and snatched him into the sky. In 1909, a fellow by the name of George Jacobs not only saw the snallygaster in lurid detail, but discovered that its numerous tentacles were bulletproof. And in 1932, the snallygaster ruined an entire vat of perfectly good moonshine. The first article referencing the snallygaster was in the Middletown Valley Register in 1909, and the headline read, I quote, "The colored people are in danger." A 1935 article published in the Montgomery County Sentinel describes the African-American folks of Dickerson making suits of iron armor to protect themselves against the claws of this beast who, I quote, "takes a strange delight in catching and devouring Negroes." But the snallygaster's origins were decades earlier. It wasn't constructed of loose parts in a lab or the result of miscegenation between an octopus and an owl, but was a story fabricated by white people to control African American people after emancipation, to remind them that they were not safe in the woods. A 1932 article in the Montgomery County Sentinel described 10 white men armed with rifles, pistols, shotguns, and oaths, attempting to kill the snallygaster as it swooped through Dickerson at a ferocious clip. Though they failed because the snallygaster retreated to its lair on Sugarloaf Mountain, which the men were too afraid to enter, this posse did take a detour on their return home, still armed to the teeth, to warn their African-American neighbors that the snallygaster was out and looking for blood. In the late 19th century, another newspaper reported violence in my hometown under the headline, Maryland Justice. There is a small grassy field in the historic district of Poolesville, Maryland, and in this field there is a marker, a memorial to an act of racial terror. In 1880, a group of 35 to 100 people lynched George Peck, an African-American man who was accused of assaulting a white girl. Some of these men were masked, many were not. When two juries reviewed the case, the Montgomery County Sentinel reported, George Peck came to his death by strangulation at the hands of parties unknown to the jury. His body hung from a locust tree through the next morning. He was later cut down and unceremoniously buried in an unmarked grave to prevent people from further desecrating his body. Shackles, bloodhounds, kidnappings, pernicious falsehoods, this myriad of tools white folks use to keep black people out of power. This country is full of snallygasters, stories and traditions that might sound frivolous at first glance, but are intentional and deliberate acts of racism. And we exist today in the same systems that brought this country the snallygaster, and there are still beasts about. Thank you.
Next is me. I'm Rachel Kuntz again. Sorry. I wrote a piece inspired by the piece in the other room, Screeching Silence, from Kiana Hormand. I write nonfiction, and I've been thinking a lot about womanhood and different aspects of it. And while I was in there, I was thinking about the meaning of womanhood and beauty and our impulse to try to control it. And also the sewing piece, I was thinking about an essay of sewing all these different pieces of what has contributed to my idea of womanhood together, forthcoming. Not what I'm reading. But here are a couple of pieces. What a woman looks like. I conjure the image of my mother, naked before she dressed for work one morning. I watched from the tousled sheets as plumes of baby powder bloomed into the billowing shower steam from the master bath. My mother shook the floral-scented talc into the folds of her damp skin, bespeckling the air with the dust that would orbit her morning bustle. She wore pantyhose back then, stretching them across dimpled thighs like a second, more perfect skin. She clasped herself into a bra like a belt around her wide waist, pulling herself taut as she twisted the clip to the center of her curvaceous back. A quick flip, and into their respective cups she tucked each of her large breasts, elongated with each of her 5 births, and thumbed the straps onto her shoulders. She would have worn a blouse then, soft and slack around the midsection, and the satin would have fluttered lightly along her heavy limbs. As a child, I remember I watched with enchantment, never questioning the rightness of my mother's body, having not yet studied images of strangers or consulted the counsel of my peers. I simply thought this is what a woman looks like, something I long to be. Oh, sorry. As a child, my mother lived in what she called a cold flat, an apartment in downtown Indianapolis without running hot water. My mother describes the way her mother would wash her hair by boiling water on the stove. It's okay. Yeah, Allison was like, I'm just afraid I'm gonna cry.
Now I'm going to. It's okay.
My mother describes the way her mother would wash her hair by boiling water on the stove and mix
mixing it with the cold in a large basin, and then setting it on the floor. My mother's mother laid her daughter across the dining room table so that her body-length hair draped off the edge and into the warm pool. I'm reminded of this when I lay my own daughter across the length of the kitchen island to detangle and condition her shoulder-length hair in the metal sink, careful not to let the ends slip into the garbage disposal. My mother's hair was straight and black. My hair is curly and red. And my daughter's hair is coiled and kaleidoscopic brown. We have all... This is what happens when you read raw stuff. We have all known the careful attention of an admiring parent. Mine was my father, and he loved to brush my hair. He brushed it every day, stroke after stroke, brushing it so much that we never knew it could be curly. He trimmed it himself, too, straight across the ends, and he forbade me from cutting it above an inch. I hated my hair just as my daughter hates hers. She wishes it could be long and straight and blonde. And she already recognizes the world in which she lives, a world in which a colorless, more cooperative kind of hair prevails. But the irony is that she is actually breathtaking. Her large, voluminous hair, tendrils, wild and soft, stacked into a bronze frame around her wildflower, honey-colored cheeks. And beaming from their midst are two large eyes that contain galaxies of cerulean and tawny starbursts expanding from the center, all encircled by an impossibly deep indigo blue. Yet, she wishes it were different, like I once did, like perhaps we all do at one time or another. Thank you for going on that journey with me. Next, please welcome Malik Thompson.
Hi. Oh, there's a lot of people in here. Hey. I have two poems. The first one is more of a meditation on being a citizen of the global north, or a sub-citizen of the global north, I should be more specific. Overture. You sleeping beside me, where green waves buckle in thorns. The flag was mine and fallen. A year, a minute, lifetimes exhausted in our waking months. Half-night purple and purple wind easing through this city of glass and doubts. You shatter, my flag and its star-bleached insignia torn. Sleeping beside you, I buckle, your hand inside me foreign and warm. And that's not a reference to fisting, just to be clear. So this next piece is actually written in response to the online exhibit by the artist Edie Adegoke. He has this really beautiful paintings up that I encourage everyone to go check out. This poem is written in response to are entitled The Soul's Errand, and it's like self-portraits of the artist in these like really lush sort of like forest jungle spaces. And for some reason that made me think about Adam, the Adam and Eve Christian story, and wondering what his thought process, what his emotions were prior to the emergence of like Lilith and Eve. So this is Adam alone, after Edie Adegoke's The Soul's Errand 1 and 2. What hums in this garden in pairs, soaring birds and great cats, finger marks in the clay in the riverbed, the soil and water from which you molded my face and chest. Erosion of your breath, softening packed earth into these lungs and skin. The sun falls each day and the sky darkens. I pierce these nights of silence with prayer, kneeling for you beneath a moon broken between its phases. And yet still, this hollow ringing in my chest. Lions roar and toss their blazing manes. Songbirds warble to one another from the tips of dappled branches. But when I speak, only you speak back.
Next, please welcome Allison Gold Weinberg.
First, I want to just say to Rachel, you are a fearless leader. As executive director, you just did for us what needs to be done in an artistic space, which is to be completely vulnerable, share your heart. It's so hard. And so all of these writers and all of the artists we're communicating with do that, and it's so beautiful. So thank you. I may cry as well. We'll see. I loved all of these exhibits, and I struggled to decide whose work to write about. But when I walked in this room, I might cry right now, actually. When I walked in this room and saw, second from the left, the women, a portrait of resilience by Helen Segay, I could not take my eyes off of it. And a lot of the work I've been doing lately as a writer is to talk about the idea of artifacts, like even us as artifacts and humans as artifacts and the things we leave behind and the things we take with us. So that was very much on my mind when I wrote this poem. The Ladder. At the lowermost level of a house, past the last rung of a long staircase, beneath the battered opening to a crawl space, in a sticky at the folds cardboard box, the women in black and white sit upright on wooden chairs, sipping coffee. Their table is laid with lace and Ramallah in spring, pictures in grayscale of anemones, buttercups, and red everlastings. The women's finjan, tranquil blue, veil roasted at home, ground by hand, brewed to boiling coffee. Hotter than weather, this pleasure of scalding, not by sun, offered with fruit and nuts. Coffee, black like their irises, black as the waves they pin tidily back, black enough to see stars and sail away, and bitter as the rubble they perch atop, that one day will bury them, made lightly sweet like cardamom. The women in their high-necked blouses and comportment lift deceptively delicate vessels to mouths that kiss and murmur, tongues that capture stray salt, whisper secrets, utter devotions. Together they laugh, complain, defy, imagine. Together they embroider into a future the rose, the moon, and the pigeon. Sow shade beneath the cypress. Darn the wall, permeable and permanent. Mend the ladder, and pray, daughters, ascend where mothers could not. This still life is not the durable thing. The women are unperturbed, unwrung, blossoms folded, strong threads. Thank you.
that concludes our program. I know that some of the I know that some of the artists are here, and the writers will stick around for a few minutes. So please, if you enjoyed something that you heard tonight, approach them, not me, because I'll start crying again. And just let them know, chat with them. Feel free to introduce yourselves to the artists as well. And thank you all so much for joining in.